There we go. So we established that Anne Bradstreet's a poet. What else do we know about her? Her house burned down. Okay, there's the title of the poem. You know, upon the burning of our house, July 10th, 1666. What else? She was a Puritan. Okay. Are you sure that she was Puritan? Maybe she could be a pilgrim. All right, I'm saying that to confuse you because we're going to look at a video in a second, not about her, but it's about Puritan versus pilgrim, because there is a difference. She's Puritan, so when you said that, you're right. I mean, she's absolutely Puritan, which is kind of interesting. Most of the explorers who came into the United States, who came into the colonies or came into this area at the time, were young single men. The Puritans seeking this religious freedom brought their entire family. So there was a difference. The men will come over and establish and then try to do some things, but the Puritans came, and the Pilgrims as well. They came with their entire families, which was, they just pretty much gave up on Mother England and said, you know what, I'm out, and then took everything and then came over here. Could we do that today? All right, so where's our next place of exploration that no one has settled? What? Antarctica. Yeah, okay. Yeah, I don't want to go there, but it would be the equivalent of going to some place where no one is at, taking your whole family, and we're going to establish whatever, and then whatever befalls us, befalls us. And I can't believe I used that old term, but that's what it would be like. Or space exploration. It'd be like we go to a planet that is occupied by something we're not familiar with, and say, you know what, we have access there. We're just going to go and live there, and we're going to make it no matter what. And so that's the equivalent, or some undersea laboratory or something like that. Who knows? But they are facing a lot of unknowns. There's a lot of knowns too. Known that we will still be able to breathe. There's a food source there. We can farm. We can do things with our hands. So it's a little different than from going out into space. But I want to show you this really boring, video, because it does talk about the differences between Puritans and Pilgrims. And I know this guy is proud of himself. It's 5 minutes and 33 seconds long. So, but it's not bad, and it's a very simple explanation, I think. And I look for something that's very quick. I thought about giving you an assignment, go to history.com or something like that has the articles and pull those out and do a little thing about Anne Bradstreet, but I thought, nah, let's just listen to this dude here. So without further ado, I guess, we'll do this. We'll probably get some ad or something like that.
Hey there, students. In this video, I'm going to give you a quick explanation of the nuanced differences between Pilgrims, Puritans, and Separatists. These are topics that can confuse some students of U.S. history. First, I want to give a quick shout out to Miss Bacon's AP U.S. history class at Denmark High School in Georgia. I know that's a little bit confusing. It's not in Denmark, it's in Georgia. The state, not the country, just to be clear. And I tell you what, I love bacon. And if you love bacon too, go ahead and give this video a like. If you're vegan, go ahead and dislike it. It's okay. It still helps my engagement. So, let's go back a few hundred years and talk about the Pilgrims. Now, the Pilgrims, I've got quotes around this because this is a colloquial term. These are specifically the settlers who landed at the Plymouth colony in 1620, and we tend to refer to them as the Pilgrims. Now, these aren't the only people who ever made a pilgrimage. A pilgrimage is just a journey for religious purposes. Those of you who've read the Canterbury Tales, they are making a pilgrimage to the shrine of St. Thomas of Becket. Muslims are strongly encouraged, if they can, to make a pilgrimage at some point in their life to the holy city of Mecca. So the pilgrims who came to the colonies looking for religious freedom, which we go into in other videos, they get this title because that's just what we call them. Now, what the real question is here is Puritans versus Separatists. And this is where we get into, okay, they've got something in common, but there's also something different. Now, I've got a deeper explanation of all this in my video series on religious freedom in colonial New England, if anybody wants to look at that. Now, first of all, Calvinism. This is a common thread, okay? So Pilgrims, Puritans, Separatists, all of these settlers in colonial New England were followers of John Calvin and his Reformed theology that called for big changes, all right? Massive changes, as they say in Britain, right? Massive! So they wanted, for example, any kind of art, statues, anything like that. Whitewash the walls, burn everything that is a graven image or idolatry or anything like that. They wanted more of a reformation than the Church of England was going to provide. Remember that Henry VIII, he wanted to get a divorce. He really didn't have a problem with the Catholic Church. He loved Catholic doctrine. He defended it before he needed a divorce. And so the Puritans and Separatists, they thought that the Church of England was too Catholic. And so as far as that goes, we want to note the similarity here, that Puritans and Separatists shared a commitment to Calvinist theology and principles, and also to all of the funny clothes that they wore and all of that kind of stuff. You can't really distinguish a Puritan from a Separatist by looking at them, because they all adopted the Calvinist mode of dress. Now, the difference being is that the Puritans, they believed that they wanted to reform the Church of England or purify it, okay? So imagine putting the church into a Brita pitcher or something like that. If the church were water, we want to purify it. That we want the Church of England to become more like the Calvinist would like to see it, which of course was the objective in the English Civil War of the Puritan faction. So as far as that goes, then we go to the Separatists. Now the Separatists, they wanted to separate from the Church of England. So they believed that the Church of England was just beyond redemption and that there was no hope for it, and the only way to have a pure church in the Calvinist tradition was to completely separate from the Church of England. So remember, their doctrines are the same. They both love John Calvin and his theology and principles. It's just a matter of their approach, whether they wanted to purify the Church of England or separate from it. So as far as that goes, while we're talking about the Pilgrims were not Puritans, they were Separatists. They were members of this more radical faction of the Calvinist movement in England. So as far as that goes, let's do a quick review. Puritans. These were Calvinist settlers who sought to reform or purify the Church of England. Isn't it great that we're speaking about all these words in English? It should be very easy to remember. The Separatists, they sought to separate from the Church of England, and let's remember that the Pilgrims, these settlers who settled in the Plymouth colony in 1620, they were separatist, okay? They wanted to separate from the Church of England. I hope that was helpful. There are plenty of other helpful lectures if you'll subscribe to my channel, and of course feel free to keep in touch on social media. It is always a pleasure.
All right, so at least he had a pretty good guitar lick at the beginning and at the end. But all right, so what's the difference between a Puritan and a Pilgrim? I mean, because we know the Pilgrims, we know that they came Mayflower Compact, Thanksgiving. You know, we celebrate Pilgrims, Plymouth Rock. So what's the deal with it? What do you need to remember? Yep. So Puritans and Separatists, that's the real difference. Pilgrims is just somebody, or just a name that we said, this group of people who came over, and that included Separatists and Puritans. We give them the Pilgrim title. So at least, you know, that's all it is. So we really don't know until we separate the Puritans versus the Separatists. Separatists separate from the Church of England. King Henry VIII really kind of messed that up, but the Church of England, I guess, saw the Catholic models and the priest, the priests that were around there, the friars and people like that, they were basically at one time dirt poor. So Catholicism. So you give to the church and get people to give to the church. The Church of England saw that, and so that's part of what they were doing anyway. It's why the Puritans thought, we need to purify the church, because they wanted a very simple way of presenting, I guess, coming to church, going to the Lord. It shouldn't be all about the church making rules, man-made rules, and things like that. I mean, it's just pretty interesting. What does that have to do with Anne Bradstreet? She's a Puritan. And the reason that I'm talking about it, and it might have something to do with your assignment today, and just kind of closing her out, it's always nice to understand the people that influence us. Anne Bradstreet, as a poet, as a writer, has influenced us. The Puritans, as a group, their religion has influenced how we look at ourselves in the United States, as far as historically. Now, we all don't follow the Calvinistic doctrine that they were talking about in the video, but it is a basis of a lot of what we have here in the United States, especially the Christian religion. Now, we've incorporated a whole lot of other religions coming through and over the years, and it's probably not as evident now, but still in this country, Catholicism, Christianity, and now Islam, I guess that's right, Islam, and a few of the other religions too have become, that's our go-to. So our laws are based on Puritan or Pilgrims. That's a trick question, because we just said that Pilgrims is just a name that we gave to everybody coming over seeking religious freedom, but it's really based on the Calvinistic separatists and the Puritans. So a lot of our laws are like that, back from the Mayflower Compact. Anne Bradstreet, her I wouldn't say her mental status, but the way what she writes and how she thinks becomes important to us. And if we just look at her writing at face value, we go, oh, okay, this is a kind of a religious fanatic. But it's not just a religious fanatic, it's the way she was raised. So we have to apply that to ourselves, not necessarily what she's doing, but think about how we write today. Think about how we communicate today. Think about who you are. So the things that you grew up with, your surroundings, your influences, they form a picture of who you are when you write, when you speak, when you text, when you do the social media. All that plays in a part. What I want you guys to take away from this is that when you go out and make decisions, all right, your decisions are influenced by what? And you alone can only answer that. But you have to understand too that others' actions and reactions are also based on their influences. So it's kind of like being not trying to be politically correct on anything, but at least having the knowledge that this is how you approach people, and understand that they may not have had the same advantages you have had, to pull a quote from F. Scott Fitzgerald. So anyway, the assignment today is pretty much, let me go ahead and do this. Not the HR burning house. Go back to sharing screen. And I'm going to take the shortcut, go to Bradstreet writing. I know, writing, but it's what we do in here. You do need to write. All right, so here follow some verses upon the burning of a house. You are going to have to go back through and read that. I do want to look at a couple of things with the poem, and I'll do that too, but this is the main assignment. You're choosing one of these. You're not actually doing both. I actually considered that. That will be kind of interesting to do. But what does the poem reveal about the author's view on the purpose of life and human nature? See, that's why we kind of did the video. That's why I wanted you to see what her background was. Then there's more. I mean, I provided you for some additional background information on the PDF before, and you have to go back to one of the other assignments to pull that up. Analyze how the author conveys her philosophy. Remember, separatist versus Puritan, Purified Church of England. She's Calvinistic. So anyway, analyze how the author conveys her philosophy. Consider the style, imagery, and tone as you develop your response. Use details and examples to support your ideas. Now, if you choose that one, I don't mind you going to history.com and finding something else about the Puritans or something, but use evidence from her text, her how is she coping with this disaster? Or you can choose number 2. Would Bradstreet's poem be easy to understand if a person had no information concerning the Christian religion or the Puritan lifestyle? So we haven't even really talked about a lot of the Puritan lifestyle, except that their life was spent pretty much predominantly in prayer, working hard, farming, surviving during this point in time. She was 16 years old when she got married. She was 18 when she was traveling on the sea to come to the colonies. So she landed pretty early in her life. So, but she comes from a very influential family. As a matter of fact, they were talking about something I was reading on her. She seems to be a very well-educated person. She would be the equivalent of probably a summa cum laude from Harvard or Yale at this point, one of our top education schools, and being the top student and having that knowledge. She was privileged, so to speak, for 1600. So I think that's something to understand too. Let's see. If a person had no information, again, consider the style, imagery, and tone, but also consider allusions presented in the poem, those biblical allusions. And I'm going to pause right real quick and answer that phone. I really can't pause. It's Coach Whitty. I will. Oh, wait a minute. All right. So the allusion, there's some things for biblical scripture that Christians will be very familiar with. You know, I go to a place that I prepare for you. Thou hast a house on high erect. She said that in her poem. So use details and examples to support your ideas. And that's what you are working on. It shouldn't take you too long. If you don't remember the poem, go back over that poem, kind of do a quick read over it, and you should be okay. But really, this should be a good page in length. I didn't specify it because I really don't want to specify how long it should be. If you want to do a research paper on it, knock yourself out. But if you want to do a paragraph, I'm happy either way. Okay? So, and that's it.